In 2023, sales of these were up by 1,000% over in the UK. What am I talking about? I'm talking about air fryers. In today's episode of Dr. Nora, I take you through everything you need to know about air fryers and whether or not they are actually healthy for you. Over the past 5 years, air fryers have exploded in popularity. Why is this? Well, perhaps we're a nation that wants to have fast and convenient food cooked at home, and an air fryer certainly does live up to these expectations. But what is an air fryer, I hear you ask? Well, in case you've been living under a rock and you kind of don't know what an air fryer is, here is my guide to what an air fryer is. An air fryer is typically a small, compacted, transportable device that sits nicely on your kitchen benchtop. It is akin to a conventional oven in that when you crank it on and turn it up, it actually heats your food up to a very high temperature, but in a much quicker duration than your conventional oven. Food is simply placed inside of the basket, which you pull out, and it has small perforations within the basket. And the net impact of that is that when you turn it on and crank up the temperature, which sometimes can be up to 200 degrees centigrade, depending on what you're cooking with, hot, I know. But what happens once it is turned on, then the heat travels through the small perforations in the basket and heats up your food rapidly. Now, the net result of this is that you often have food that is crispy on the outside, but soft and chewy on the inside. All sounds too good to be true. Well, certainly it is good for those who are time poor, who don't have a lot of time to cook their meals. And of course, if you are on a budget with your electricity bills, because certainly if you're cooking for 1 or 2 people, perhaps you don't want to crank open the oven, turn on the electricity for so long. Whereas if you cook with an air fryer, you cook for a fraction of the time and therefore reduce your energy bills. But let it be known that not everything can be cooked in an air fryer. Air fryers are great for cooking things like potatoes, samosas, chicken wings as examples, but they're not so good at cooking your vegetables and your pastas. So if you're somebody who likes those foods, then maybe an air fryer isn't for you. So aside from air fryers being a lot quicker in their cooking process and perhaps using less electricity, what other benefits are there for an air fryer? Well, compared to deep frying your food, which uses a lot of oil, air fryers only use a real quick spritz of oil. Now, this can be much more beneficial in terms of calories. If you're having to deep fry your chips, for example, you are putting so much saturated fats into that poor little chip, and it really can have some bad impacts on your health, not to mention leading to heart disease, heart attack, strokes, etc. Weight gain, not good at all. Now, this obviously depends on what you're cooking with your air fryer and how your recipe tells you how to cook the food. But generally speaking, the amount of oil that is used for an air fryer is considerably less than a deep frying method. So you can see already that there is a potential benefit to your health by using air frying versus deep frying. This all sounds great, but what are the potential drawbacks of cooking at a high temperature? As you can see over here, I've got my beautiful diagram that's going to go through a couple of compounds that are released when you cook food at high temperatures. The first compound that we see is something called acrylin over here. Now, acrylin is released when foods are cooked at a high temperature and certainly when oils are reused. So if you're somebody who deep fries and uses the same oil over and over again, then chances are you'll be releasing this chemical into the air around you. Now, the net impact of that is it can burn your nose and burn your throat because you breathe it in from the air that is surrounded by you. And so generally speaking, any foods that are cooked at a really high temperature tend to release this. So if you think that you like hanging around the deep fryer or even the air fryer when that nice smell of oil is being burnt, I'd probably think again, because you might be having your fair dose of this. But what impact does this have on the body? Well, acrylin is actually classed as a possible carcinogenic, meaning that it potentially can cause cancer in human beings. As I said before, it can cause burning to your nose and your throat. And interestingly, did you know that it's also found in cigarette smoke, car exhausts, and also used as a pesticide as well? So if you're cooking with oils and you're reusing those oils, you might want to think again so you can reduce your exposure to this harmful compound. So in saying that, then air fryers may potentially reduce the amount of acrylin that is being released because you're not reusing the oil. However, you still are cooking foods at high temperatures, and so there may still be an amount of this being made into the surrounding air around you. Of course, air fryers are still very new, and there's still lots of studies that need to be conducted to work out their exact safety. Under acrylin, you can see there's another chemical compound that is released, and that is known as acrylamide. What is acrylamide? Well, acrylamide is another chemical compound that is released when you cook food at high temperatures. It's actually responsible for creating that burned, crispy, tasty kind of look on your food. So if we imagine that you've got a piece of toast, for example, and you crisp it down, the more browner it gets, the more acrylamide that is being released. Might make you rethink your toast in the morning. But interestingly, one study actually showed that using an air fryer versus a deep fryer actually had 90% less release of acrylamide than a deep fryer, which is actually pretty good going. Of course, there is still acrylamide being produced, and that must be something that you must take into consideration because, let's face it, acrylamide can also be found in cigarette smoke. It's also used as a thickening agent in cosmetic products, but generally speaking, acrylamide isn't so good if you do ingest it. In fact, it is known as a neurotoxin. This means it can cause damage to your nerve cells, meaning that you may have difficulty feeling things and you may also have weakness in your muscles. It has also been shown to interact with our DNA and RNA cells, meaning that it can change our genetic makeup. And unfortunately, in lab animals, it has been found to cause cancer. And so by hearing all of this, you may want to reduce the amount of acrylamide exposure that you do have, because if you are cooking foods at a high temperature and they're nice and crispy and burnt, as they may be with your air fryer, perhaps it's not the best thing for your health. Of course, in saying this, any cooking process can cause your food to be crispy or burnt. As I said before, cooking toast in a toaster may also create some acrylamide because you make it nice and burnt and crispy. So just be mindful of your cooking habits and your exposure to these possible chemicals. One drawback that an air fryer has compared to conventional cooking methods is that relating to fish. One study looked at cooking sardines in an air fryer, and they actually found that the amount of good cholesterol was decreased and the amount of bad cholesterol was actually increased when this food was cooked in an air fryer. So although an air fryer is good for a lot of foods, perhaps some nutritional components of certain foods may be decreased when you cook them in an air fryer. As I mentioned before, air fryers are still really new, and so we're still trying to work out what exactly is good and what exactly is bad when we cook food in our air fryer. But it is important to note that if you do surround your life with mainly cooking your food in an air fryer, perhaps it's time to change things around and go back to more conventional methods. Because as I said before, vegetables cannot be cooked in an air fryer. And so if you're solely relying on your air fryer to cook your food, then it may be that you're missing a huge part of your nutritional breakdown. You need to have a diet that is packed with fruit and vegetables, as well as protein and also carbohydrates as well. And if you're relying on your air fryer to cook you some potatoes or samosas or perhaps chicken wings, then maybe it's not going to be the most nutritionally diverse plate that you have in front of you. And so my best advice for you, if you are using an air fryer for your meals, use it as a complementary add-on rather than the be-all and the end-all for cooking your foods. One other interesting feature of most air fryers that I've noticed is that a lot of air fryers are actually made from non-stick materials. Now, if you remember my video from last time, which is about forever chemicals, you'll know that non-stick materials actually contain lots of nasties in them. And certainly the air fryer that I tested out scratched really easily. This means potentially releasing a lot of nasty chemicals whilst I'm cooking my food. And so it is super important that if you are using an air fryer, take a look at the interior of it, make sure that it's not scratched up, and do care for it very carefully. If you are washing it down and it's getting scratched and the paint is going off really easily, then it may be increasing your exposure to these forever chemicals, which, as we've learned from the previous video, may have some really nasty effects on your health. Perhaps an alternative to this would be to use a ceramic air fryer where it doesn't contain non-stick material, or just even ditch the air fryer altogether. But of course, I wouldn't do that to all of you air fryer lovers out there. I would simply say that air fryers do have plenty of benefits, as we can see, when compared to traditional methods of deep frying. However, they do have their drawbacks, and certainly it is an area of cooking that still hasn't been researched fully. We do know that there are some chemicals that are released when you cook at high temperatures, such as acrylamide and acrylamide, although these seem to be slightly less than traditional methods such as deep frying, for example. But I certainly would reiterate to be really mindful of how you're cooking your foods. If you are cooking a meal and you're relying on your air fryer, then make sure that you do use other more conventional methods to cook your food. For example, steaming your veggies so you can maintain that nice nutritional component of your vegetables, and also having a balanced diet. So this means having protein, vegetables and carbohydrates on your meal. Not to mention you're serving a fruit for the day. So what do I think of air fryers, and will I be using one myself? Well, I think that they're a great step in the right direction. As I mentioned before, they're a good add-on to your existing methods of cooking. Personally, for me, nothing beats a Sunday roast in the oven, because the smell just fills up the house with lovely potatoes and the chicken roast. Too good to be true. And when I tried out my air fryer, probably because I'm not very good at using it, I happened to burn my potato wedges, which didn't come out very nice. So for me personally, I think I'll be sticking to my conventional oven, but I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you use an air fryer? And if so, what do you cook with it? I hope you guys found this video useful, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care and stay healthy.